What's up, Dragon Brew? Today we're going to talk about a lot of cards that are overperforming here in the early stages of Edge of Eternities. And I want to state that this is from stuff I've played, watching other streams, looking at early test tournament results, going to local stores, seeing what's moving. So it's kind of a small, amalgamation of all these different things. But obviously, things can change. We're just giving information based on what we have now. As always, this is just one more point of information for you to put toward you making your decisions. Also, don't forget we have an accompanying video of things that are underperforming that you probably shouldn't craft, so you can check that out. And tomorrow we'll also be launching a video for the first time we haven't done on the channel of old cards that have gotten better because of Edge of Eternities as well. So be sure to like, subscribe, and do all the good things so that way you don't miss those and you can have all the information you need when the season starts. Let's go talk about some overperforming Edge of Eternity cards. All right, we have Consult the Star Charts. It's a 2-mana instant that lets you look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of lands you control, and you put one of them in your hand. It has a kicker of 2, and if you pay that kicker, you get to take an additional card and put it into your hand. Now, when it reads, you look at it and say, this card has to be good. But there was also discussions on, is there room for this card when everybody's already playing Stock Up? Turns out, you're probably still going to play Stock Up, but then you're probably going to play 2 to 4 of these, depending on the type of deck you're playing. I will say that every time I saw it, it was actually pretty good. Because you think about it, even for 2 mana, if the worst case scenario is you're looking at 5 cards and you get to take one of them, that's fine for an instant speed 2 mana spell. And even better if you're able to kick it, saying you left mana up and didn't have to counter something or whatever. Really fantastic card. I expect this is going to be very popular in the long run. And it's probably going to get played throughout its entire run of Standard. This is probably one of the safest cards on the list. Weapons Manufacturing. This is 1 in a red for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token artifact you control enters, create a colorless artifact token named Munitions. When this token leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. Now, there's going to be a couple other cards we're going to talk about here that work well with this card. But this card individually, I think there was some concern on. We were pretty sure this was playable, but what the hell do you do with the munitions since they don't do anything on their own? Well, it turns out there's a lot of really good cards to actually sacrifice those and get a great benefit. Some that allow them to do extra damage, some that turn them into other things. Like, lots of things you can do. I think the trick to this card was just, are we able to play enough other artifacts to make it worthwhile? And the answer is yes. There are a ton of artifacts in the set, some that happen to be robots, but also some older artifacts that are just reasonable that you already wanted to play, or were at least on the cusp and now become more viable because you can play this card and get a benefit out of it. I think we haven't really seen the best things to do with this card yet, and there's still potential for this card to do stuff down the road in Standard. Remember, it's going to be around for 3 years, so anything that comes along that lets you sacrifice an artifact for a benefit, you're always going to come back to looking at this card. So this might have a decent amount of use now and could have more later. And remember how I mentioned some cards would work with weapons manufacturing? Well, we have Biotech Specialist as one of them. It's a green and a red, so 2 mana for a 1/3 Insect Scientist, which is a great type line. When this creature enters, create a lander token. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, this creature deals 2 damage to target opponent. Now, again, this card doesn't directly let you sacrifice those munitions tokens, but anything else that does now allows you to get an extra 2 damage out of them, so it's obviously good. And it creates a lander token of its own, so worst case scenario, next turn you spend 2 mana, go search for another land, and you get to ramp up. I think while we've been playing this card in these decks with munitions, weapons manufacturing, or whatever, we haven't really seen the best of this card yet. I think it's safe to produce if you want to play the sacrifice deck with the weapons manufacturing, but I would still be a little cautious on this. While I think it has overperformed, I'm not sure this is one I would just rush out to yet unless you know you want to play that specific deck. However, if it turns out that lander tokens are a thing in any type of red-green or red-green-black type situation, well, this card's going to be damn good, because then now searching for lands means you also get to shoot the opponent for 2. So again, I think this is a card we haven't seen the best of yet, but it did have a great early showing with what we've seen so far. Yeah, Boroid. Boy, this card. 2 green for a 1/3 plant worm, also a crazy type line. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you put X +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. Well, X is this creature's power. The thing we learned about this card, as we assumed, was that if it doesn't get killed on the first 2 turns, your board's almost too big for your opponents to deal with. Sometimes it surviving twice just creates lethal on its own. But even then, just after a sweep, you're like, great, I have this 2/4 that the next thing I get's going to get 3 counters. Like, how do you feel about it, right? It's just so much stuff going on with this card. And what I like about this a lot is that it's kind of a one card package, right? You don't have to rely on a bunch of other things. Like this and anything else is effectively a creature combo. But the best part about this card, especially if you decide to go buy it in paper, it's going to be wanted by a ton of decks, right? Anything that plays +1/+1 counters, a lot of creature decks. Hell, honestly, this is a type of card that will always hold value. Anytime you have something that can maximize tokens, double your counters, whatever, those cards hold value in the long run, especially on a mythic card here. And it's probably going to be a short open set because we only have about 6 or 7 weeks before we get into Spider-Man. So yeah, this one almost has more value in paper than it even will have for you on Arena. But very good card. Yes, if you're playing +1/+1 counters, go for it. And I think there may be room for some of these either in mono green or Gruul or something like that. So yeah, really sweet card. A little surprised that it performed as well as we expected, but also not surprised in a weird way. Cosmog Zenith is another card that actually did a lot of work that I don't think we've seen the best of yet. But it's 2 and a white for a 2/4 human soldier. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, choose one, either to make 2 1/1 white human soldiers, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And again, this card can go in token decks, it can go in +1/+1 counters decks, it can go in humans or in soldiers, or anything where you just want to play your second spell and use it as a way to just buff up your board, right? It has a lot of uses, and having only one white pip in the casting cost means you can play it in a lot of stuff. Like this card, again, we read the words and went, this is probably pretty good, but then it turns out it's better than that. And I don't even know what the ceiling is for this card. Like this is one I expect we're going to see a lot of. And you can play it with any build of either playing a bunch of cantrips, so you can always have another spell, or just playing a bunch of creatures is also fine. Really sweet card. I expect we're going to see a lot of this on the ladder in the early stages of the season, but I would not be surprised if we're still seeing this down the road, you know, even 2 or 3 sets from now. Hey, quick break in the action here. If you haven't, be sure to check the link down below so you can get like these sweet shirts with these tie-dye space pattern if you hadn't picked one of those up. But also other cool stuff, mugs, stickers, buttons, whatever. And while we're here, if you want to get any of these cards in paper, don't forget to check out Tales of Adventure. It's toamagic.com, and I have a code that'll save you 5%. It's DRAGN. So you can save money buying all the new cards. Just want to put that out there. Anyway, more Magic cards. Tanic Steadfast Second. This is a 4 mana 3/5 Kavu Pilot. The fact that it's a pilot doesn't really matter. It just is. But other creatures you control gain haste was actually really good with this, but also any artifacts or red creatures you have now have warp of 3. This is cool for a lot of reasons, right? Just giving stuff haste, very powerful, especially if you're ramping up to something big. But also being able to play these huge things for just 3 mana, even if it is just for 1 turn, sometimes is enough. Now, it is limited to artifacts and red creatures, but there's really big red things like Drakuseth that you could play that you would almost never cast otherwise. Also, just generally good with just quality other cards. I think the thing about this, though, is we haven't really seen all the places it fits. Like, what if we were to play 1 or 2 of these in something like a Smuggler Surprise deck, right? Where you're generally trying to just sneak stuff into play. Well, what if you can just do that now for 3 mana instead of having to wait on your Smuggler Surprise? Right? There's all kinds of neat things you can do with this. And now it's going to be that card that all the way into the future, whether there's a new big artifact creature or some big crazy artifact in general, but also big red creatures, you're now going to come back to, well, you know, maybe I go back and look at Tanic because I could play this for 3, and then what happens? Right? This is going to be a card always going to have value in standard because every set's going to bring something else you can use with this. So yeah, this is generally going to be a safer one. The only thing I would say right now is we don't know what the best standard deck is going to be for Tanic, and who knows, it might be multiples. So for that reason, you might want to hold off just a little bit on those mythic wildcards, but ultimately, I think we will be seeing this on the ladder for sure. Now, I debated putting Serma on this list or not because it's, well, we'll talk about it here in a second. The card is colorless, white, so 3 mana, or generic white. I know some of y'all are sticklers. But it is a spacecraft. When it enters, you can search for a legendary creature. And then, if you get to 7 station, it gains flying, and your other tapped legendary creatures you control have indestructible, and it's a 5/5. Now, the thing about this is, it's not like you're just going to throw this ship into every deck, right, that just wants spacecraft. But if you're playing any number of legends, this card is automatically just good, right? One, because it just lets you tutor up the legends that you need. But it's pretty easy to get to 7. As we saw, we got to 7 fairly regularly with this, and it just gives all your other stuff indestructible. So this can go into Naya or Selesnya legends. We played it in the Kona decks with like Rip and just sneaking big things on the battlefield, because it also functions as a way for your survivors to become tapped. And your best survivors also happen to be legendary, right? Even if those are the only legends in the deck, it's still worth it to play the Seriema. So yeah, again, this is one of those cards that I think as we get into Spider-Man, that's going to have a lot of legends, right? And any of the few, oh, actually, I guess Avatar is probably going to have legends as well, right? So through the rest of the year, this card's only going to get more value. I mean, ultimately, that's what we're looking at. So yeah, this really cool. Turns out 7 Station was not that difficult to get to, and just being able to tutor up your key cards is always important. You don't get that many well-costed tutors that also have a significant upside, and this is definitely one of them. Yeah, this one just did everything we expected it was going to do. But Sir Vandom Sunstar Exemplar. Black, white, 2/2. So 2/2 for 2, fine. And has Vigilance and Menace. Vigilance and Menace. What was that first word? Vigilance and Menace. There you go. Already a lot for 2 mana, but whenever another creature you control dies or is put in exile, put a +1/+1 counter on Sir Vandom and you gain a life. When this dies or is put into exile with power 4 or greater, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. The thing about this card is the way it's worded, right? No matter what, it's either exiled or it dies, you get those triggers. Awesome. If this card had either of the paragraphs on here, would still be playable. The fact that it has both, and it has Vigilance, and it has Menace, super, oh, just good. Just good. There's no other way to describe this card. And yes, it fits into Humans decks, Knights decks, anything that cares about life gain, whatever, right? That's a thing. If you're doing the sacrifice stuff with Orzhov, like that's an option. If you're playing Raise the Past, that's an option, right? All kinds of stuff you can do with this card. We saw it every which way. Does not surprise me that this performed the way it did. It exceeded expectations, and honestly, it's going to be a card we're going to see for a while. In some ways, it takes the place of Elisil Core in some of those lists. While not functioning exactly the same, it kind of fills somewhat of that role with some extra abilities. Anticausal Vestige. 6 colorless or 6 generic Eldrazi. Actually, let me say this. Like, the fact that an Eldrazi showed up and ended up being one of the better cards in the set is kind of silly in a weird way. Tells you how good they make those cards. But either way, it's a 7/5. When this creature enters the battlefield, draw a card. Then, or actually, sorry, when this creature leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Then you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. It does have Warp of 4. This card turned out to exceed expectations by a large margin. Matter of fact, we saw it in way more decks than we thought were going to play it. But it actually makes sense, right? For 4 mana, you just get to play a 7/5. Maybe you need to, I don't know, station a ship or a planet or something. And then when it goes away, you get to draw a card and you just get to play whatever, a 4, 5, 6 mana thing, depending on how much land you have. But also later in the game, there's situations where you might only have 4 or 5 mana, and you're like, great, I want a card, I want to dig, cool, and I'll still get to put something into play, so I'm not left without anything. And then you get to do it again, later on, just play it for 6 and have a big 7/5 creature. And it's not even like a 7/5 do nothing, because it's worded as when it leaves the battlefield. So even if it gets exiled for some reason, you still get the benefit of that extra draw, even if you don't have anything great to put onto the battlefield. So just a cool card all around. I think we knew some things we could do with it, but it performed even better than we expected. So yeah, if you have deck lists that are playing this, go ahead, because you're probably going to play it in 2 or 3 other lists as well. Exalted Sunborn. This is one where we thought, yeah, it's probably good, but how good? Turns out still really good. So 3 white for a 4/5 Angel Wizard, flying lifelink, already good stats here. And then if 1 or more tokens is be created under your control, twice that many of these tokens are created instead. And it has a warp of 2. Now, remember how I said anything that's giving you all those extra counters or doubling up tokens or whatever is always going to be something people want. So on paper, feel free to go hog wild on this card. People will always want it. As for Arena, This actually works out really well. There's a lot of scenarios where you're attacking and making tokens, or something entering makes tokens, or hell, even Elspeth being able to make tokens or whatever, which you could double and then double, which is silly. Hell, I'm gonna go back and rewind that deck we played recently that played Chocobo, Racetrack, and Felidar or Felidar Retreat, right? Along with this, for just 2 mana on the turn, you decide to trigger some landfall things and you get a bajillion tokens. Like, that seems great too. The fact that the warp is only 2 is what makes this card interesting, because on an early turn, you can say, all right, I don't necessarily want to commit more to the battlefield, so let me go ahead and just pay 2. I'll make a few extra tokens. Let's see if the opponent can get rid of these. If they don't, you win, right? If they do, then after the sweeper, you're like, great, I have a 4/5 Flying Angel, and now everything that was making tokens before, gonna make double. How you feel about that, right? It's just a quality card. If nothing else, the Angel decks were playing it just as a flying lifelinker with 4/5, right? Like, that was good enough. It didn't even need to double anything. So yeah, just a fun quality card overall. I expect we're going to see a decent bit of this. Yeah, let me say that we can't cover every single card that overperformed or underperformed, but again, we will have the video where stuff underperformed, and we'll also have one talking about older cards that got better. So be sure to check those out. If you haven't subscribed, you should do so. Remember to hit the like button to make sure you don't miss those other videos, because the one on old cards will go up tomorrow. But if you subscribe, remember, you might want to become a member if you want extra videos where we talk about all types of stuff and or get private deck help. Otherwise, just watch other videos and watch them all the way through, because that always helps the channel. But yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. That's all I have you for now. Oh my gosh, that's all I have you for now. We'll see you next time. It's been a long weekend, y'all.